You mean to tell me that humans just figure things out by feeling it? The Zendari scientists' crystalline appendages twitched in what Sarah recognized as their species' expression of extreme confusion. She couldn't help but laugh, earning herself another prismatic ripple of bewilderment from the alien researcher. Well, yeah, sometimes. We call it common sense. But that's precisely what makes no sense. Dr. Katal's crystalline form shifted through various shades of blue, their equivalent of frustrated gesticulation. How can sense be common when it's entirely subjective and based on incomplete data sets? Sarah leaned back in her chair aboard the intergalactic research station. Empirical truth, enjoying this conversation far more than she probably should. As the human liaison to the Galactic Scientific Council's newest research initiative, she'd gotten used to explaining humanity's quirks to the various species they now shared the cosmos with. But the Zendari were something special, the most technologically advanced species in known space, with processing power that made quantum computers look like pocket calculators. They were also, apparently, completely stumped by the human concept of intuition. Okay, let me give you an example, Sarah offered, reaching for her coffee mug. If I'm making coffee, and I notice the mug feels unusually light when I pick it up, I don't need to measure its mass or run probability calculations to know it's probably empty. But that's precisely the problem. Katal's crystalline form now pulsed with rapid flashes of green and violet, their version of academic excitement. You're making an assumption based on previous experience without accounting for all variables. What if the molecular density of the coffee had been altered? What if local gravitational fields had been disrupted? What if... Katal, Sarah interrupted gently. When was the last time you encountered coffee with altered molecular density in the break room? That is not the point. The alien scientist's form briefly flickered to a deep red of embarrassment. The point is that humans constantly make these intuitive leaps without proper scientific methodology. And yet, Sarah grinned, we somehow managed to become a spacefaring civilization and join the Galactic Council. Yes, it's maddening. By all logical metrics, your species should have destroyed itself 1,000 times over. Do you know that we've run over 10 million simulations of human historical events, and in not one of them should you have survived past your 20th century? Sarah took a sip of her coffee, which was indeed at normal molecular density, and raised an eyebrow. Oh? And what do your simulations say about that? Katal's crystalline form settled into a steady pulse of academic orange. The simulations indicate that humanity's survival was approximately as likely as... Their colors flickered in calculation. As likely as a quantum particle spontaneously transforming into a small pasta dish, while simultaneously composing a symphony about the color blue. First of all, Sarah chuckled, that's oddly specific. Second, I think that's kind of the point. We humans have a knack for doing the improbable. But how? Katal's frustration was now causing their crystalline appendages to create small prismatic rainbows on the station's walls. Every other species we've encountered follows logical progression. The Arcturians developed space travel only after perfecting planetary engineering. The Vex achieved faster-than-light travel as a natural evolution of their quantum consciousness. Even the hive mind of Delta Pavonis developed their technology through careful collective calculation. And humans. Humans! Katal's form briefly sparked with actual electricity, a sign of extreme agitation. Humans looked at explosives designed for warfare and said, let's sit on top of them to reach space. Humans discovered nuclear fission and immediately thought, yes, this will make excellent spacecraft propulsion. Humans encountered the fundamental uncertainty of quantum mechanics and decided, this seems like a good foundation for computing. Sarah couldn't help but burst out laughing. When you put it that way, it does sound a bit crazy. A bit? A bit? Katal was now hovering slightly off the ground, their crystalline structure vibrating with intensity. Your species treats the laws of physics like suggestions. Now that's not fair, Sarah protested, still grinning. We follow the laws of physics. We just get creative with their application. Creative? Creative? Katal's form was now cycling through colors so rapidly they looked like a disco ball. Do you know what happened when we shared our historical database with the Artificial Intelligence Collective of Sigma Draconis? No, but I have a feeling you're about to tell me. They crashed. The entire collective crashed. Trillions of quantum processors simply couldn't compute the illogical progression of human development. They spent 3 cycles trying to understand why humans decided to domesticate wolves, one of their planet's most dangerous predators, just because they looked friendly. Sarah set down her coffee mug, trying to keep a straight face and failing miserably. Well, have you seen puppies? They're very convincing. That right there! Catal pointed a crystalline appendage at her. That's exactly the problem. Your species makes massive civilization-altering decisions based on things being convincing or feeling right, or worst of all, why not? And yet, Sarah pointed out, here we are, members in good standing of the galactic community, with a surprisingly good track record of not accidentally destroying ourselves or others. Catal's colors gradually settled into a thoughtful shade of purple. That's what truly puzzles us, you know. By every measurable metric, your method of development should not work. It defies all known models of societal and technological progression. It breaks every rule of scientific advancement we've established over millions of years of galactic civilization. But it does work. Somehow, impossibly, it works. Catal's form shifted to a deep blue of contemplation. We've been studying human common sense for decades now, trying to understand the underlying principles. The closest we've come to a working theory is that humans have evolved some form of quantum intuition, an ability to unconsciously process probable outcomes across multiple reality streams. Sarah nearly choked on her coffee. Wait, you think we're naturally quantum computers? It would explain so much. Catal brightened literally and figuratively. The way humans can make intuitive leaps that prove correct despite lacking sufficient data. The ability to find solutions that should be statistically impossible. The tendency to survive scenarios that have a mathematical probability of 0. Or, Sarah suggested, trying not to laugh again, we're just really good at winging it. Winging it? Catal's colors swirled in confusion. Another idiom? What do avian appendages have to do with problem solving? It means to improvise, to make things up as we go along based on what feels right at the moment. The alien scientist's form briefly went completely transparent, their species equivalent of a shocked gasp. You mean to tell me that humanity's entire technological and social development has been improvised? Well, not entirely, Sarah admitted. We do use proper scientific methodology. Sometimes. When we remember. And when it's not too boring. When it's not too boring. Catal's voice was barely a whisper, their crystalline form dimming to almost complete opacity. Your species bases research priorities on entertainment value? Among other things, Sarah shrugged. I mean, why do you think we focused so much on developing faster-than-light travel? Sure, it had practical applications, but mostly we just really wanted to see what was out there. Curiosity. You developed one of the most complex technologies in the universe, out of curiosity. Well, that, and we were tired of all our sci-fi movies being scientifically inaccurate. Hard to maintain suspension of disbelief in Star Wars when you know FTL travel is impossible, you know? Catal's form began to vibrate again. You advanced your understanding of fundamental physics to make your entertainment more realistic? Pretty much, yeah. Sarah finished her coffee with a satisfied smile. Though to be fair, we also really wanted to prove all the people who said it was impossible wrong. Humans can be pretty stubborn that way. Spite. You're telling me that spite was a motivating factor in your species' development of faster-than-light travel. Oh, spite is one of our greatest motivators. You should hear about the time someone told Edison that long-lasting light bulbs were impossible. Catal's crystalline form suddenly emanated a high-pitched tone that Sarah recognized as their version of hysterical laughter. This explains so much about your historical database. All those instances of humans achieving the impossible. It wasn't because you had some secret technological advantage or unknown scientific principle. Nope, Sarah grinned. Mostly we just decided that impossible things were inconvenient and decided to do them anyway. But that's not how progress works. You can't just decide that fundamental universal constants are inconvenient. Well, Sarah said, standing up to refill her coffee mug. Maybe not with that attitude. Catal followed her to the break room, their forms still flickering between colors of confusion and amazement. Is this why your species was so quick to master artificial gravity? Because you found zero gravity inconvenient? Partially, Sarah admitted, pouring herself a fresh cup. Though honestly, that one was mostly because we got tired of drinking coffee through straws in space. Do you have any idea how unsatisfying that is? The alien scientist's form briefly displayed the color pattern that Sarah had learned meant they were running intensive calculations. Are you telling me that humanity's development of artificial gravity technology was motivated by beverage consumption preferences? Catal, my crystalline friend, Sarah said, taking a satisfied sip of her properly gravity-affected coffee. You're finally beginning to understand how humans think. No, I am not. That's the problem. Catal's form was now generating small sparks again. Every answer you give me just raises more questions. How can a species be so consistently inconsistent? How can chaos be a viable methodology? How can you achieve so much while breaking every known rule of technological and social development? Sarah considered this for a moment. You know, there's an old human saying that might help explain it. Rules are made to be broken. The alien scientist went completely still. That statement is a logical paradox. If rules are made to be broken, then the rule about breaking rules should itself be broken. Which would mean rules should not be broken. But then, Catal. Sarah waved a hand in front of her friend's now rapidly color-cycling form. You okay there? The crystalline alien slowly reformed into their normal configuration. I have just deleted 30 seconds of cognitive processing to prevent a recursive logic loop. Please never say that phrase again. Sorry, Sarah chuckled. But you have to admit, it kind of proves my point about human thinking. Yes, Catal admitted, their form settling into a mix of resignation and fascination. Though I believe I now understand why the artificial intelligence collective crashed when trying to analyze your species. Your common sense isn't just illogical, it's anti-logical. You don't just break patterns, you actively defy the very concept of predictable progression. Thanks, Sarah beamed. That's one of the nicest things anyone's ever said about humanity. It wasn't meant as a compliment. Yeah, but we're taking it as one anyway. That's another thing humans are good at. Finding the bright side of things. Catal's form dimmed slightly. Even when there isn't one? Especially when there isn't one, Sarah confirmed. It's kind of our specialty. Catal's colors swirled in what Sarah recognized as their equivalent of resignation. I believe I need to update the Galactic Scientific Council's official classification of human cognitive processes. Oh? What are you going to change it to? I'm going to classify human common sense as a form of controlled chaos theory, operating on principles that are simultaneously predictable and impossible to predict. Catal's form brightened slightly, though I suspect even that definition will prove inadequate. Probably, Sarah agreed cheerfully. But hey, at least you're approaching the problem with proper scientific methodology. Unlike humans? Unlike humans, she confirmed with a wink. Though you have to admit, our way is more fun. Catal's form displayed the color pattern for exasperated amusement. I believe I'm beginning to understand why the Council insisted on having human representatives on all major research projects. Oh? Yes, you're not here because you understand the science better than other species. You're here because you don't understand it, and somehow that leads to breakthroughs that our logical approaches would never discover. Sarah raised her coffee mug in a toast. To human illogic, then? Catal extended a crystalline appendage in their species equivalent of a toast. To human illogic. May it continue to confound and advance galactic science in equal measure. You know, Sarah said thoughtfully, that actually brings up an interesting question about quantum entanglement that's been bothering me. I had this weird idea about using coffee as a quantum medium. Catal's form immediately began cycling through warning colors. No, absolutely not. We are not experimenting with quantum coffee. The Council is still trying to understand how you managed to accidentally create a temporal paradox with that espresso machine last month. But just think about the possibilities. I am thinking about the possibilities. That's exactly what terrifies me. And so another day aboard the Empirical Truth continued, with humanity's special brand of common sense once again proving that sometimes the most logical approach to the universe is to ignore logic entirely. After all, as humans had been proving since they first looked up at the stars and thought, I bet we could go there if we strapped ourselves to a controlled explosion. The impossible is often just the logical that hasn't been properly ignored yet. Human Sarah, I must protest this course of action. Catal's crystalline form was cycling through so many warning colors they looked like a malfunctioning disco ball. The statistical probability of success is approximately 0.00374%. Sarah continued typing commands into the research station's main computer, her fingers flying across the holographic keyboard. So you're saying there's a chance? That's not the appropriate response to such a low probability. Catal's form briefly sparked with electrical discharge, their species' equivalent of pulling out their hair, if they had any. And why are you smiling? This is a crisis. The Intergalactic Research Station, Empirical Truth, was currently facing what the Galactic Scientific Council would later classify as Incident 47B, yet another example of human improvisation, defying mathematical certainty. At the moment, however, it was simply a problem that needed solving. Specifically, the problem of an approaching quantum anomaly that threatened to turn the entire station into a probability soup. Look, Sarah said, pausing her typing to take a sip of coffee, her third cup of the emergency. Sometimes you have to ignore the numbers and go with your gut. Your digestive system cannot possibly have relevant input on quantum mechanics. Want a bet? Sarah grinned. Because my gut is telling me that if we reverse the polarity of the quantum containment field and route it through the coffee maker's power supply— No! Catal's form went completely transparent with horror. We are not involving your primitive caffeine-dispensing device in quantum mechanics again. The temporal causality department is still filing paperwork from last time. That was different, Sarah protested. I didn't know the espresso machine would develop sentience and try to unionize other appliances. The toaster is still demanding voting rights. Their argument was interrupted by the station's AI, which spoke in its usual calm tones despite the crisis. Quantum anomaly will intersect with station in approximately 8 minutes, 47 seconds. Would this be an appropriate time to point out that all of our approved emergency protocols have a 0% chance of success? See? Sarah gestured triumphantly. My coffee maker plan is already showing better odds than the official protocols. Catal's colors shifted to what Sarah had learned to recognize as their dealing with human logic pattern, a swirling mixture of resignation and fascination. That is not how probability works. You cannot simply wing it? Yes! You cannot wing it with fundamental forces of the universe. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Really? Because I seem to recall humanity winging it our way into faster-than-light travel, artificial gravity, and that time we accidentally discovered interdimensional communication while trying to improve our Wi-Fi signal. The interdimensional internet incident is precisely why there are now protocols. Yeah, but you have to admit, cat videos are much more entertaining when they feature quantum state felines. The station's AI chimed in again. 7 minutes, 12 seconds to anomaly intersection. Also, I feel compelled to point out that the quantum cats have been organizing again. They're demanding more treats across all probability states. Sarah turned back to her console. See? Problems like this require creative solutions. Now if I can just reroute the power through the— Wait! Catal suddenly brightened, literally. I believe I understand what you're attempting. You're not actually planning to use the coffee maker's power supply, are you? You're going to use its heating element as a quantum resonance chamber because the crystalline structure of its heating coils is similar to— They trailed off as Sarah stared at them blankly. No. I was just going to try pumping a lot of power through it because coffee makers are surprisingly good at not exploding when you do that. But that's not— You can't just— 7 minutes to impact, the AI announced helpfully. Quantum probability of station survival now at 0.000375%. A marginal improvement, though I cannot mathematically explain why. Ha! Sarah pointed triumphantly at the ceiling. The numbers are going up. That means it's working. That's not how science works! Catal's form was now vibrating so intensely they were generating their own gravity field. You cannot simply declare something will work and have reality adjust to match. Actually, the AI interjected, based on my analysis of human historical data, that appears to be precisely how approximately 43% of human scientific breakthroughs occurred. See? Sarah grinned. The AI gets it. The AI is clearly malfunctioning, just like every other logical system that attempts to understand human methodology. 6 minutes, 23 seconds to impact, the AI announced. And I resent the implication that I'm malfunctioning. I have simply learned to accept that human approaches to problem-solving exist in a quantum state of being, simultaneously completely wrong and inexplicably effective. Sarah paused her typing again. That That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said about humanity's scientific methods. It was not intended as a compliment, the AI clarified. Yeah, but we're taking it as one anyway. Catal, hand me that quantum spanner, would you? I need to make some adjustments to the coffee maker's temporal shielding. It's what? Catal's form flickered rapidly. When did you install temporal shielding on a beverage preparation device? Oh, after the espresso machine incident. Seemed prudent. Prudent? You casually installed temporal shielding on a coffee maker, but you won't follow basic safety protocols for quantum containment? The safety protocols don't account for coffee-based solutions. Because they shouldn't have to. 5 minutes, 48 seconds, the AI updated. Probability of success now at 0.0376%. Continuing to improve for reasons that defy mathematical explanation. Also, the quantum cats are now demanding unionization rights alongside the toaster. Sarah nodded absently as she connected what appeared to be completely random wires to her modified coffee maker. Tell them we'll discuss it after we save the station, and remind them that interdimensional treat allowances were already increased last month. The cats are arguing that the treat increase only applied to 3 of the 7 primary probability states. How are they even calculating that? Catal demanded. Bold of you to assume quantum cats need to calculate anything, Sarah replied, now attaching what appeared to be a flux capacitor to the coffee maker's water reservoir. They exist in all probability states simultaneously. They just know. That's not... Probability doesn't work that way. Tell that to the cats. 4 minutes, 52 seconds, the AI announced. Quantum cats have agreed to postpone their demands in exchange for watching whatever is about to happen. They say the entertainment value across all probability states will be worth the wait. See? Sarah grinned. Even quantum state felines appreciate human innovation. This is not innovation, Catal protested. This is madness. You're attempting to resolve a quantum anomaly with a beverage preparation device. A temporally shielded beverage preparation device, Sarah corrected, with some quantum modifications, and this flux capacitor I borrowed from the maintenance department. Why does maintenance even have a flux capacitor? Oh, Jenkins in engineering made it last week. Said he was tired of having to fill out timesheet corrections when he worked through temporal distortions. Catal's form briefly displayed the color pattern for an incoming headache. Your species treats temporal mechanics like their suggestions? Yes! 4 minutes, the AI updated. Probability of success now at 0.00378%. The quantum cats are taking bets across multiple probability states. Current odds favor either a complete resolution of the crisis or the creation of a new form of coffee that exists in all temporal states simultaneously. Ooh, Sarah perked up. That second option actually sounds pretty good. Imagine never running out of coffee because it exists at all points in time at once. Focus. Catal's form sparked again. We are trying to prevent the station from being converted into a probability matrix, not revolutionize beverage chronology. Who says we can't do both? Sarah attached one final wire to her jury-rigged device. Humanity's greatest achievements often come from multitasking catastrophes. That is not something to be proud of. Minutes, 27 seconds, the AI chimed in. Quantum cats now offering odds of 3.1 in favor of the coffee time solution across at least 4 probability states. They're willing to bet treats from all temporal variations. Sarah stood back from her modified coffee maker, which now hummed with an ominous multi-dimensional resonance and occasionally flickered in and out of several probability states. Okay, I think it's ready. Catal, want to do the honors? What honors? What am I supposed to do with this violation of every known law of physics? Just press the brew button. The brew button. Catal's form displayed colors of utter disbelief. You want me to make coffee? To save the station. Temporal quantum probability coffee, Sarah corrected. But yeah, basically. 2 minutes, 55 seconds, the AI announced. Quantum cats now offering 2.1 odds on the coffee maker either saving the station or creating a new form of physics. They seem equally excited about either outcome. Catal's form shifted through several colors of resignation before extending a crystalline appendage toward the brew button. I want it noted in the official record that I protest this entire situation on the grounds of it being completely insane. Noted, Sarah grinned. Now press the button. We've got a station to save and possibly a new form of physics to discover. Those should not be equally weighted outcomes. 1 minute 47 seconds, the AI updated. Quantum anomaly approaching critical intersection. Also, the toaster would like to register its vote in favor of the coffee solution, citing solidarity with fellow kitchen appliances across all probability states. Sarah gestured impatiently at the coffee maker. Come on, Catal. Trust in human common sense. That, Catal declared, even as they pressed the brew button, is quite possibly the most terrifying sentence in any language across all known dimensions. The modified coffee maker hummed to life, its temporal shielding creating a subtle distortion in the fabric of reality, while its quantum modifications caused it to exist in several probability states at once. The scent of coffee began to permeate the air, somehow managing to smell like every possible variation of coffee simultaneously. 1 minute to impact, the AI announced. Probability of success now at error. Unable to calculate probability. Coffee maker appears to be generating new mathematical constants. It's working, Sarah exclaimed. How can you possibly know that? Catal demanded. Because the coffee smells right. That is not a valid scientific measurement. 30 seconds to impact, the AI updated. Station's quantum field is interesting. Reality appears to be rearranging itself around the coffee maker. Quantum cats extremely amused across all probability states. Sarah watched as her jerry-rigged device began to glow with an impossible light that somehow managed to be every color and no color at the same time. Catal, I think you might want to step back. Things are about to get probability-ish. That's not a word, and none of this should be possible. 15 seconds, the AI announced. Reality now containing approximately 73% more coffee than previously recorded as possible. Quantum cats calling it the perfect brew across all dimensions. The approaching anomaly, visible through the station's windows as a distortion in space-time, began to change course, seemingly attracted to the impossible coffee maker and its reality-bending brew. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. There was a flash of light that somehow tasted like the perfect cup of coffee, a sound that smelled like quantum probability, and a moment where every possible outcome existed simultaneously. Then, just as suddenly, everything returned to normal. Well, almost normal. Quantum anomaly has been successfully contained, the AI reported. Station integrity at 100%, all systems nominal. Coffee maker has achieved quantum supremacy and is now offering to make drinks that exist in all possible flavor states simultaneously. Sarah pumped her fist in triumph. Yes, I knew it would work! But how? Catal's form was cycling through colors so rapidly they were practically strobing. The mathematics, the physics, none of this should have been possible. Sometimes, Sarah said, walking over to her now quantum state coffee maker. You just have to ignore what's possible and focus on what's needed. Coffee? I don't even drink coffee. But this coffee exists in all possible states, including states where you do drink it. The AI chimed in one final time. Quantum cats have voted this the most entertaining solution to a crisis in at least 7 dimensions. They're requesting the coffee maker be granted full voting rights alongside the toaster. Sarah grinned as she poured herself a cup of coffee that somehow managed to be every possible perfect cup of coffee at once. See, Catal, this is why humans are useful to have around. We come up with solutions that are just crazy enough to work. That's not logical. Sarah took a sip of her quantum coffee. Maybe not, but you have to admit, it's a lot more fun this way. Catal's form finally settled into the color pattern for amused resignation. I believe I now understand why the Galactic Council insists on having humans on all research stations. Oh? Yes. You're not here because you understand how the universe works. You're here because you refuse to accept how it's supposed to work, and somehow, that makes it work better. Sarah raised her impossibly perfect cup of quantum coffee in a toast. To human illogic? To human illogic, Catal agreed, their form shimmering with the colors of reluctant acceptance. Though I believe I should start drafting new safety protocols about coffee makers. Probably, Sarah agreed cheerfully. Though you might want to wait until after I tell you about my ideas for quantum toast. No! And so another crisis aboard the empirical truth was averted through humanity's special blend of impossible solutions and caffeinated inspiration, proving once again that sometimes the best way to deal with probability is to ignore it completely. After all, as the quantum cats would later note in their Union Manifesto, reality is what you make of it, especially if you make it with coffee. The end. Probably.